keep in mind that you are the best. Keep in mind that you are unique. Okay, so something which goes with everyone. Everyone breathes, everyone eats, everyone drinks. So that something is common. But then your identity is your identity.
Hello and welcome to the STEM and Research Podcast. Today we have Professor Yitzi Verma with us.
Professor H.C. Verma recently retired from the Indian Institute of Technology, Kanpur, where he taught physics for over 20 years. He received the Padma Shri Award this year for his contributions to education in India. He's been involved through various initiatives to promote science and physics, and he's authored many textbooks, his most popular being the volumes of Concepts of Physics.
So thank you so much for coming on. This is honestly an honor.
Thank you.
Yeah, so let's dive into it. So your name is famously associated with physics throughout our country, but why did you choose to enter physics? What sparked your interest?
Ah, let me try to recollect. When I completed my 12, not 12, that time it was 11. This new education policy is going back to my times. So at 11th, we had a single board. We used to call it matric. So I finished that, and then I was admitted to Patna Science College, and the staff there, the teaching faculty there, were really excellent, and they in fact inspired me to go for mathematics or physics, or even chemistry was fine that time, but mathematics and physics were something which so essentially it was the college, essentially it was the faculty at Patna Science College, essentially it was the teachers. So the kind of commitment they had, the kind of methodology they used, the kind of love, affection they showed to us, that in fact inspired me to go for either mathematics or physics. In fact, I could have landed in a mathematics career, but that is what I was planning. But then, right at the on the day of submitting the form for BSc honors, some mathematics professor there itself counseled me that if you go for physics, you will enjoy both the world, physics and the mathematics. If you go for pure mathematics career, then you will be confined to mathematics only. You will not be enjoying your physics taste. I thought he was very right. And that finally led me to go in this physics path. So that is it. And I'm very happy about that.
Yeah, and we are all quite thankful about it as well. Yeah. Within physics, there are many subfields. What made you choose nuclear physics?
In fact, not any specific reason. That time, once again, the institute played the role. When I was doing BSc, all subfields were okay with me. Heat and thermodynamics, I scored highest in my BSc, some 87 or so in 70s, early 70s, very high marks. All right, and then optics also I enjoyed, general physics, the mechanics, everything. But at IIT Kanpur, where I joined for my MSc 2-year program, so once again, the faculty there, the labs there, they inspired me to go into this field. I did my MSc experimental project in this nuclear physics laboratory at IIT Kanpur, and from there I could see the beauty of nuclear physics theory as well as the experiments. So I was really interested into it that we can probe materials at the scale of femtometers using our apparatus, which are in meters and centimeters and millimeters, and we are probing the distances of femtometers. So that was very amazing. So well, I started like that. But in whole of the career, I was not confined to nuclear physics. Okay.
Okay.
So my own training is the experimental nuclear physics. But then I had worked in geophysics, I had worked in material science, I had worked in magnetism, many things, whatever whatever it was there in front of me, I got into it.
Okay, did you consciously choose to work in many of these fields, or were you open to like whatever you get a chance to work in? Was it that kind of attitude?
That's right. In fact, I don't want to confine myself into a narrow lane. Okay. So anything comes in front of me, I try to explore it a little bit. And if that exploring little bit leads me to get more involved into it, fine, I take it up.
So our current education systems, like they are quite heavy on the theory side of things, at least when we're starting. And students aren't taught in most places to give as much attention to experiment. And so, with that in mind, you did allude to this slightly, but what made you choose experimental physics and not theoretical physics?
It goes hand in hand. In fact, theoretical physics and experimental physics are not two different things. Okay, every theoretical physicist must be aware of the experimental struggles, experimental excitements, and these things. Should do experiments with own hands. Okay, unfortunately, that's not the case. If I talk to a person who is from the very beginning in theory and trying to excel there, so they will come up with wonderful mathematical expressions and explanations and all those things. But then the real physics is no physics is the study of the nature. Okay, and the study of the nature means you look at the nature, you work with it, and you see the intricacies, and then try to develop a theory. Right. So it's very important that all theoreticians have some experimental exposure. And similarly, if I'm doing experiments, if I don't have competence to uh, do theory of it, and I only depend on my theoretician friends, that doesn't work out. That really doesn't work out. So in fact, at IIT Kanpur, when I was faculty there and I was doing research, there were many instances that we did some experiments and the results were very fascinating, exciting. But then understanding them from the basic theory was a difficult task. And I contacted my theoretician friends, and they could not understand it well because they had not done the experiment themselves at any point of their career. So it finally did not work out. Okay. So the collaborations will also work out well if the experimenter knows little bit of doing theory, developing theory. That those skills are there, little bit. Specialize in experiment, but then some skills, basic skills should be there. And similarly, the theory friends, they should have some experimental skills. They understand that what I'm telling, right? So then the collaboration works very well. Okay.
Yeah,
So since my nuclear physics interest was started in the lab, in MSc 2 year MSc experimental project lab of 2 semesters. So from there it started, and therefore finally I was inclined more towards doing experiments. And later when I went for this school college education field, that time it was almost almost a craze that I develop experiments for schools, develop experiments for colleges, and drive teachers into that lane like that.
I see. Yeah.
Mhm.
So I know we're like on the question of the importance of experiments in physics in general, and I think that this could start pretty much at the school level, which is what you've been really focused on. So I personally participated in Anveshika for two or 3 years, and yeah. But why do you think such a hands-on approach is really important to understanding physics, especially at the school level?
Yeah, in fact, as I said, it's a study of nature. Okay, so you have to work with nature. You have to be into it, right? You cannot see it from outside. You are a participant of this whole game. So doing something with your hands, seeing something from in with your eyes, that has a very different impact than understanding some mathematical equations and like that. Okay, and at the school level, it's much more important. It's much more important because see, what is the natural process of learning? When there's no assistance, there's no school, there's no the kid is still in the age group of say 2 years, 3 years, 1 year. So the student is learning, that the kid is learning, and lot of learning before going to the school. Correct, one full language that you speak in your family, one full language. Now learning a one full language, you can understand how Herculean is this task. Okay, but this kid, before going to a school, at the age of say 1 year or 2 year, is fluently speaking the language that is spoken at the family. And so much of mathematics, so much of pattern recognition, so much of many things they learn, right? How? What is this natural process of learning? Look at the nature, look at the events, look at the things that are happening in that area, in that surrounding, and then derive conclusions from there. That's most important. Derive laws from there, right? A student, a child of age 3 years, very well knows all the Newton's first law, second law, third law. Okay.
Yeah, by
Okay.
intuition. But yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Right. So how did the child learn this? So that culture is the natural culture of learning, right? You look at the events and then you derive your laws from there. So that's the kind of theoretical aspect that is developing. So at school level, when I am tuned to this kind of learning, and one fine morning I am told that no, forget all these things, write the equations and mug up the formulae and learn how to solve numericals. So that actually disrupts the whole mind. So at a school level, it's very important that we focus on this methodology, that something is happening in front of your eyes, and then you derive conclusions from there. You learn your physics, science, and the thought process that will be in tune of the natural learning process of the student. And if you are doing something very artificial, then the frequencies will not match, the resonance will not take place, and whatever is the vibrant things that will damp. Okay, and therefore it's very important that a school level focus is given on these hands-on experiments. The phenomena should be shown. That's our duty, right? A child can learn from the phenomena, but the child has to be exposed to the phenomena. That is the duty of the elders. That's the duty of the teachers and the system. That is.
Yeah, so you just spoke about how science is a process, and so like the scientific method can be, especially for a subject as all encompassing as physics, you can see it everywhere around you, so you can apply it to many spheres. But for most students, it is true that right now it is limited to what they are forced to learn in their textbooks and for school, and the emphasis is on exams and those kinds of external objectives that they're told to focus on. So how can one promote an actual appreciation? Like, what are some of the difficulties if you're trying to design some kind of education system to create an actual appreciation and this natural form of learning that you just spoke of?
I really don't know, because it needs a wider discussions, and I think people have gone through that exercise very recently, and then they have come up with this new education policy, and we still have to see the results, how it is implemented, and what is the impact and all that. But my take is that even with this prevailing system, where the focus is on the examination, the focus is on rote learning, the focus is on obtaining marks and all that, we can still inculcate this culture. It's not at all difficult to prepare for an examination and score high marks without understanding anything. It's not difficult. You don't understand anything, but you are a hard worker, you can always score well. And it doesn't take much of the time. Okay, it doesn't take much of the time, very sure. It's only the false picture that is painted that the students are spending so much of time in schools, colleges, tuitions, this, that, they're solving this worksheet, solving that worksheet, and so on and so forth, cramming all 20 years CBSE questions and all those things, right? It's not at all difficult. Preparing for examination is a simple job, and scoring in examination is a simple job. No, you must have only some basic training. That's it. After that, you can do it. So you have enough time to do something which is beyond the examination. Enough time. And if you can find, say, 15 to 20% of your time, which can be devoted in the things which you like, okay, which enthuses you. If some 15 to 20% of your full time is given to this, you can do wonders, right? So this parallel training is important, right? Go through whatever school is saying, go through whatever his college is saying, go through whatever board is saying. Fine, okay, it's good or bad. It's bad when 100% you depend on that only. You are 100% involved in that. Then you are training your mind according to the administrators, right? The management committee has decided something. CBSE has decided something for you. What is this? Oh, I am an entity in myself. Why should CBSE decide what should I think and what should I not think? So this mentality of independence, confidence, I am an important entity, so that has to be there. That will give you the desired skills. Otherwise, if you are always following someone else's instructions, then you will keep doing that only in the whole of the career. Right? So even in the present system of rote learning and scoring marks and focus on examination, etc., if right kind of counseling can be done, if right kind of opportunities can be thrown to the students, and we ask for 15% of their time for this activity, that can really change their entire thought process, and that can enrich them. They will be much more confident to come out with newer solutions which are not in the textbook, which are not told by the college, which are not told by the schools. So that research culture can be inculcated. All those things can be done with this system also. Okay. So whatever system you evolve, the idea is that you should give enough independence and exposure to the student, so that independent of whatever your system is, and whatever are the parameters for excellence according to the system, beyond that, the person can develop his or her own identity. That is important.
Yeah, that is definitely excellently said. So I do want to ask you though, do you think that's like a secondary goal? Because you said also, right? So do you think that should be the focus, or should it be like, because a lot of people they are made to worry about their careers and all of this marks and all too soon, in my opinion. Do you think people should really pressure themselves with those things, or this whole thing that you think also do that? Should that be their focus?
No, also is okay. I'm only asking for 15% of the time, not 85% of. I will not try to reverse the train. Okay, I only want to orient it in the right direction little bit. If you try to reverse the whole direction, then it will be very difficult. It will not be acceptable to the society, because the society still thinks that if you are scoring high marks, you have a bright chance of having a good career. But what I am saying is, it does not need 100% of your efforts. You can do it very well, and together with this, once again, also, together with this, you should develop yourself. Okay, you should develop yourself, and that must be on the agenda. That must be on the agenda, whether you give it a 10% of time or 20% of time or 15% of time or 30% of time, it should be on the agenda. Once it is on the agenda, the thrill is so much. The thrill is so much. Doing something on my own without any assistance. I have thought it, I have done it. So that feeling will drive you in that lane further and further and further. So I don't ask them to focus on it. Don't focus on your examination, but just keep this on the agenda. If you keep this on the agenda, it's fine. Little bit of 10% of time. So that will always keep your thinking cells alive. See, in the present system, the thinking component is very small. Okay, the students don't have to think much for passing the examination, scoring good marks. The whole system is such that the textbook is telling you what it is, the teacher is telling you what it is. A good teacher, a very good teacher, wonderful teacher, who is a wonderful teacher, explains it so nicely that students understand the things in the first go. Okay, that means you have snatched the opportunity to struggle with the ideas, give a lot of thinking to it, debate with other students, other fellow students. All those opportunities are gone if that excellent teacher has taught you in an excellent way. Okay, so that opportunity has been snatched from you. If the teacher is not that excellent, and you have to struggle, you have to read 5 books, you have to discuss with your friends, those, no, this is not true, it should not be like this, and then that debate gives you the actual learning and the actual knowledge, that would be much better, right? So in our system, the thinking component is very small, and that is very dangerous, because if you don't think for say 6 7 years, okay, then you will not be able to think for the next 60 years also, right? That is why it is important that this independent learning, beyond the system, parallel to the system, still your main focus should be on the examination, scoring good grade cards, right? Going for good institutions and all those things should be there, but keep this on your agenda. That is my message.
That is
Yeah,
actually
that's great
very
advice. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great advice. So I think towards the end, what you were alluding to, I've heard you speak on this before, is currently we somewhat try and focus on like the right way to answer a question, but you think it's a better way to phrase this is say we should be learning the right way to ask question instead. I know you've mentioned that before, so like I
Yes,
think the
yes.
last part could be relevant to this. So we should talk
Yes,
about
yes,
that.
yes. If your thinking cells are active, okay, the questions will come to your mind. If your thinking cells are dormant, you won't ask questions. So that questioning is very important, because the knowledge is advanced only through these questions. Some new question comes into mind, and then you are solving it. That actually enhances the knowledge base of the world. So it's very important that the people question.
Yeah. So also knowing how to think, except for what to think. Yeah.
Okay.
So we do want to ask, because of this pandemic, a lot of our education has moved online, although forcibly so. Um, what are your thoughts on modernizing education by adapting all of the technology that's available to us? Is that a good idea, or should people? What are the merits of doing so?
Actually, we are learning. I'm also learning. Okay, this has given me an opportunity to learn many more things. Right, I had given online courses before in 2016. Since 2016, I'm giving these online courses at BSc level. Right, at the hcverma.in website created by IIT Kanpur for me. So I had been doing, but this forced mode of going online in a bigger manner, that has really taught me many things. So, for example, every year we do some experimental national competition on experimental skills. Okay, we call it NACE, National Anveshika Experimental Skill Test. It is our annual program. Okay, but this year we could not call the students to come to the laboratories and perform the experiments, and we cannot evaluate in that way. So it was a very great challenge to conduct this national competition on performing the experiment and without calling the student to any lab or anywhere. But we are doing that. We are in the middle of that program. And this NAST, National Anveshika Experimental Skills Check 2020, is being conducted. Half of it has been already conducted. We have designed experiments. Which can be done with the things available in average family, average household, and which should have all the components: measurements, accurate measurements, error analysis, okay, then taking the data, doing calculations, plotting graphs, and deriving conclusions. All those components of a standard experiment in a laboratory should be there. All those components should be there. And the student doesn't have to go to the market. The only measuring apparatus available which we could think is a plastic scale of 15 centimeters in the geometry box and a mobile stopwatch. All right? And we have really developed wonderful experiments, and 2 experiments have already been floated. Some more than 1,000 students are performing these experiments in their houses, sending us report, and we will be evaluating. 2 more experiments are will be sent. We are in the middle of that particular round, and the students are so excited. They are so excited after performing these experiments because a new component has been added. They have to design their own setup. In a normal experiment, we say that, okay, this is the optical bench, this is that you have to put the lens here. So we instruct and the students perform the experiment. But this time we have given freedom to the student. They have to design their own optical bench. They have to design their own ways to how that lens will be staying there in a particular fixed position and blah, 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 blah. So given this freedom, and there's no standard instructions, different students are trying in different ways and coming out with solutions after a lot of struggle and thinking and efforts. And when they do it, they say that, okay, this was the most memorable experiment we had done any time in the whole of the life. Right? And in many institutions, you don't have good labs, or the lab sessions are not held regularly, and so on. Many students have not done any experiment in their schools or colleges. They are saying that first time we knew that, okay, experiments are also and that can be done in this enjoyable fashion. So this online mode, if we look at it, it has a lot of merits. I did not know the strength of this online mode in this fashion, but when we are forced to go through it, then it has a lot of strengths, a lot of merits. Of course, I am still missing the gathering of hundreds of students together at one place and and kind of joyful environment. But then, learning process can be certainly enhanced through this online mode. Provided the instructor has also gone through that experience of doing things independently. If the instructor has not gone through that experience, it will be once again the routine, send some PDF through WhatsApp to the student and ask the answer sheet on the PDF and evaluate. So that doesn't make much of sense. So if the instructor has gone through that experience and has experienced that excitement of doing things in a novel way, in a new way, design yourself your solutions. If the instructor has that skills, this online mode is really very good. So there should be some proper combination of face-to-face training and this online training to do the best.
Really awesome. It's really nice to hear your feedback. feedback on it, especially because I did Anveshika, that competition in 1910. It was very influential in general. So it's really exciting to just hear how you're adapting. And I wish like we got to design our own experiments back then. Now I'm jealous of this year's participant. So now that we're in the question of just designing experiments, as you just mentioned, most of your experiments, especially this year for the competition, are going to require household items. And you've designed many, many of these experiments. So what is probably one personal favorite of yours?
On the experiments?
Yes. So what is your personal favorite experiment that you developed?
Anything that you create becomes your favorite, right?
Let's go with the most favorite one right now.
Very difficult for me. A mother cannot distinguish between different children. Anything you create, you love it.
Okay. Sure, I'll take that.
Yeah.
So right now your book is sort of the standard book followed for coaching systems, which is probably what you didn't intend in the beginning. So what are your personal thoughts on that?
It has been adopted by the system. What are your thoughts on that?
It's the holy grail of coaching physics right now. So how do you feel about that?
Right. The beginning of this concepts of physics was at Patna Science College, when I went there as a lecturer in physics, and I was asked to teach this class 11-12 students there. That time, this 11-12 was part of Patna Science College. That time, I was looking for a textbook, and Rasnik Halliday was my favorite book, and I used that as the base. But and asked all my students at Patna Science College to purchase this book and study from that after my lectures. But somehow I felt that it did not meet the expectations, and my students were really not comfortable with that. So 3-4 years I tried, failed, and then I learned that at least at the school level, the physics is to be packaged in the kind of lifestyle my students are living. So I just cannot think of conservation of momentum and collision of two bodies and refraction and reflection. I also have to see what kind of life my students are living, what kind of environment they are in, what kind of phenomena they are seeing every day and night. So under that circumstances, I have to repackage my physics. So that lesson I learned after some 3-4 years. And from there, this concepts of physics, idea of concepts of physics was conceived. So I had no examination in mind, not board examination, not CBSE, not Bihar board, and no JEE, no NEET, nothing. I did not have any examination in mind when I was writing this book or I was preparing this book. It took me some 8 years to finally come out with the manuscript or the book. And during the 8 years, I did not know what will be the audience which will accept this book or which will use this book. The only fascination was to create something which is not there. Right? To create something which is not there. It's my own creation. That was the only fascination I had. I did not know whether it will sell in the market or not. It will give me royalty or not. I didn't know anything. But the zeal was that, yes, such a book is not available, which can package this physics theory in the Indian environment, a typical B-class city environment, right? Not very metros and not very deep villages. So that is how it was born. But later on, it took its own course and became a favorite in the coaching field, because somewhere perhaps they wanted more concepts. Right? They wanted more concepts in the JEE, IIT especially, and therefore this book became a hit there. I don't know what is the current situation. That's it. That's it.
Yeah.
So I think we'll wrap it up for today. But before we go, we would like to ask you for your final piece of advice for maybe all teenagers out there, or just anybody who is listening to this.
I have already given the advice that you should identify yourself. You should give importance to yourself. Okay, don't be a mere follower. The CBSE has given you some kind of a syllabus or some kind of a examination sequence and some kind of project submission, and all of those things are fine. It's good. They must have worked very hard to design that for the best of your development. But still, something which has your own signature. So that is important. You keep in mind that you are the best. Keep in mind that you are unique. Okay, so something which goes with everyone. Everyone breathes, everyone eats, everyone drinks. So that something is common. But then your identity is your identity. You have to develop that identity. In education also, there are some things which are common. Everyone has to appear for the examination. Everyone has to try to score well. So those things are common. Good, everyone will do. You also do it. But then, what is your uniqueness? How your uniqueness will be established? That should be your focus point, or one of the focus points. So that is the message I would like to give.
Yeah, that's a
Advice.
perfect note to end on. Thank you
Yeah.
so much, sir, for joining us today, and thanks to our audience for tuning in. We hope to see everyone in our future episode.